Hello, welcome to the self-learning podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on chapter 1 structural change, and our topic is tree plantations. We have already seen how industrialization and urbanization did not happen in India quite the way it did in Britain. More importantly, this is not because we began industrialization late, but because our early industrialization and urbanization in the modern period were governed by colonial interest. We cannot go into details about different industries here. We simply take the case of the tea industry in India as an example. Official reports show how the colonial government often used unfair means to hire and forcibly keep laborers, and clearly acted on behalf of the rural planters. From fictional and other accounts, we get a glimpse of what life was for planters in this industry. Significantly, the colonial administrators were clear that the harsh measures were taken against the laborers to make sure they benefited the planters. They were also fully aware that the laws of a colonized country did not have to stick to the democratic norms that the British back home had to follow in Britain. Now let us move to the next point, industrialization in independent India. We saw in the earlier section how the colonial state had an important role in the way industrialization and urbanization took place in India. Here, very briefly touch upon how the independent Indian state played an active role in promoting industrialization, and in some sense was responding to the impact that colonialism had on the growth of industry in India. Chapter 5 will deal with Indian industrialization and its shift from the early years of independence to development after 1990s with liberalization. For Indian nationalists, the issue of economic exploitation under colonial rule was a central issue. Images of pre-colonial feebled riches of India contrasted with the poverty of British India. The Swadeshi movement strengthened the loyalty to the national economy. Modern ideas made people realize that poverty was preventable. Indian nationalists saw rapid industrialization of the economy as the path towards both growth and social equity. The development of heavy and machine making industries, expansion of the public sector, and holding of a large cooperative sector was considered very important. A modern and prosperous India, as visualized by Jawaharlal Nehru, was to be built on an edifice of giant steel plants or gigantic dams and power stations. Let us read Nehru's remark on the Bhakra Nangal Dam. Our engineers tells us that probably nowhere else in the world is there a dam as high as this. The work bristles with difficulties and complications. As I walked around the site, I thought that these days the biggest temple and mosque and gurdwara is the place where man works for the good of mankind. Which place can be greater than this? This Bhakra Nangal, where thousands and lakhs of men have worked, have shed their blood and sweat, and laid down their lives as well. Now let us move to the next point, urbanization in independent India. You would be more than aware of increasing urbanization in India. Recent years of globalization have led to enormous expansion and change of cities. We shall be dealing with that later in chapter 6. Here we draw from a sociological account of different kinds of urbanization in India. Writing on the different kinds of urbanization witnesses in the first 2 decades after independence, sociologist M.S.A. Rao argued that in India, many villages all over India are becoming increasingly subject to the impact of urban influences. But the nature of urban impact varies according to the kind of relations a village has with a city or town. He describes 3 different situations of urban impact. Now let us conclude the unit. It will be obvious to you that the colonialism is not just a topic in history, but some things that lives on in complex ways in our lives even today. It is also evident from the above account that the industrialization and urbanization implies not just changes in production systems, technological innovations, density of settlements, but also a way of life. You shall be reading more about industrialization and urbanization in independent India in chapter 5 and 6. Now let us wind up the session, and thank you very much for engaging yourself with the self-learning podcast.